Yeah, it's okay. So we do the Heart Sutra. Yeah.
The perfection of wisdom indescribable by words and thoughts, which does not arise in
nature like space, whose object belongs to the individual subject's awareness, the mother of the conquerors of 3 times. Just that here at one time, Master Vulture's mountain and Rajagriha, together with a great community of monks and a great community of bodhisattvas. Bhagavan was absorbed in the concentration on the categories of phenomena called profound perception. At that time, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara practiced the profound perfection of wisdom. They held those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. Power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra, did this to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, son of the lineage train who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom. And the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara said this to the Venerable Shariputra, any son of the lineage or daughter of the lineage who wishes to practice the activity of the profound perfection of wisdom, upon it like this, correctly and repeatedly beholding those 5 aggregates also as empty of inherent nature. In emptiness is form, emptiness is not other than form, also not other than emptiness. Same way, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty, which are likewise all phenomena had emptiness without characteristic, produced unceased, stainless, not without stain, not deficient, not fulfilled. So therefore in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, no eye, no hear, no nose, no tongue, no body, and no mind, no form, no visual, no odor, no taste, no object of touch, no phenomenon. There's no element, no ensemble, including no mind element and no mental consciousness element. Ignorance, no extinction of ignorance, and so on, up to including no aging and death, and no extinction of aging and death. There is no suffering, origination, cessation, and path. There is no exalted wisdom, no attainment, and also no non-attainment. Therefore, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and dwell on the perfection of wisdom, mind without obscuration and without fear. Completely passed beyond error, they reach the end point of nirvana. The Buddhas who dwell on the 3 times also manifestly completely awaken to the unsurpassable perfect complete enlightenment in reliance on the perfection of wisdom. Therefore, the mantra, the perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, unsurpassed mantra, the mantra equal to the unequaled, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering should be known as the truth, since it is not false. Until the perfection of wisdom is declared, Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhi Soham. Sattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom like that. Bhagavan arose from that concentration and commended the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, well said, son of the lineage, it is like that. It is like that. Practice the profound perfection of wisdom, just as you have indicated. Even that Hatagatas rejoice. Bhagavan having thus spoken, the Venerable Shariputra, the Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, and those surrounding in their entirety, and with the world of gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, I don't know how they praise that, spoken by the Bhagavan.
I prostrate to the gathering of Dakinis in the 3 chakras, who abide in the holy yoga of using space.
By your powers of clairvoyance and magic elimination,
look after practitioners
practitioners like a mother her child. Gare Bodhi Swaha. By the teachings of the 3 supreme jewels possessing the power of truth, may all inner and outer hindrances be transformed. May they be dispelled, may they be pacified, may they be completely pacified. Shantam Korare Soha.
May all negative forces opposed to Dharma be completely pacified. May the host of 8,000
obstacles be pacified. Be separated from problems and harmful conditions to Dharma, and the enjoyments be in accord with the Dharma. May there be auspiciousness and perfect happiness here, right now.
사지불기 중심에도 전리라니치 니디에 바이 상계신도 미리대와 조윤남나이신라 주벌조 제트나마 담바예남 기주그가라 긴제주진지 치다상비 라이예 주이자르바
Sangi Chiran Sugi Chadam Hadandu Badu Dadi Dagi Chudun Gibe Zunam Gidulapin Gidubajo Zangi Chiran Sugi Chadam Badu Dadi Gibzuji Dagi Chudun Gibe Zunam Dizangi Dubajo Zangi Chiran Sugi Chadam Badu Dani Gibzuji Dagi Chudun Gibe Zunamgi Drula Bend Drubajo. Okay.
I didn't share the link to the live stream.
Meaning? What?
Don't you have to share the link to the live stream with everyone?
I think it's already done by Galaxy.
Actually did it?
I think so. I could check it.
Yeah, is there anyone in the?
I don't know. I don't see anything about somebody being there.
Yeah, it's online on YouTube. It's live streaming. So the people in the group they already have the link. So
Okay.
yeah, they know that it starts from 3 p.m. You know, so they.
Okay.
Be sure though, because they're not there, unless usually they're there. Right?
Yeah,
Do you have your phone on you?
no,
You don't.
no.
Is it in your room?
In my room. Yeah.
Just maybe good to get it, because also for the
In
questions.
my room at the call.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Do you have access to WhatsApp on this computer?
No. Yeah. Can you ask Lekshay for his phone, maybe?
Mhm.
Maybe his works.
Actually, oh, you can try. You can try.
Okay. All right. Well, hopefully people are here. If they're, oh yeah, now somebody has joined actually.
Okay.
So maybe it's okay. Maybe they're able to get it. But we'll still get the phone in case we have questions. So, okay, so this week we're talking about Samne Jukdok Chawe Tsu. So this means having contemplated about karma, which we talked about for a few weeks now, then how to actually engage in
You want to check?
Actions, the right actions, and then avoid the wrong actions. Right? Jukdok Chawa. So this goes back a bit in terms of the outlines. We had, right, so the general contemplating karma in general, and then the particular ripening of karma we talked about for a couple of weeks, and now having done so, then how to contemplate what to do and what not to do, basically. What are the right actions? What are the wrong actions, having considered karma? So we can be less theoretical this week, right? We've been quite theoretical about how does karma work. Had some interesting discussions about that, I guess. Depends on what people are interested in, I suppose. But now it's more practical. What do we actually do? So there's a general presentation, Tirtempa, and then Kepardu, Topshi Jongwetsul. So then especially how to purify using the 4 opponent powers. So we'll probably just do the first section this week. It's about 4 pages. So it's mainly just a bunch of quotations. Tsongkhapa quoting different advice from Indian texts and from various Tibetan masters. So verse from Junjuk, right, the Bodhisattva Charyavatara. This is from chapter 2, right? It's quite simple and straightforward. It says, Mige wale dung aljung de le jira de targyur, aniter she, inzendadu dagini nini bashik sampervik. So this is saying, from non-virtue arises suffering. How can I be free of that? It is suitable that I just think about this day and night. The point being that why do anything else? Well, right? When this is the root of the problem, is the creation of negative karma that's then leading to more suffering, then really that should be our main focus. We shouldn't be so worried about other things. Just stop creating negative karma. And then of course, we won't experience the results of that anymore. And then the other side of it, this is chapter 4. Yeah. Kewe chokni tamchigi tsawa mabutu pesung deyan sawa daktuni namindre but gompe so. So the root of all virtue is said to be, the Buddha said to be nibbha. So nibbha is a very hard word to translate. Right? It's sometimes translated as faith, sometimes translated as inclination, sometimes translated as belief. Those mean quite different things. Interest. So I think the point here is conviction, we could say. Conviction is, or even interest would be one of it. Right? That we have conviction that this is what we should be doing. Then we will practice virtue. It's not that it's so hard to practice virtue. The problem is that if we're not really sure this is the way to happiness, then we might not do so. So then the root of that, it's saying the root of this conviction is meditating or contemplating on the results, the ripening results of karma. So thinking this is going to be the result of these actions and then generating some kind of conviction in that. So Shesung Patara, so then Tsongkhapa says, Karnaki le dretang drebu sheper chene, so knowing about white and black actions and then their results, and knowing that, shepet samla mijo par yang tayando gomprachare. So he's saying don't just leave it aside once you get a general understanding. You have to contemplate on it again and again. Because he's saying it's very hidden phenomenon, and thereby it's very difficult to gain certainty of it. Now, as we talked about before, what is a very hidden phenomenon in this case? It's the particular results of karma. It's not meant to be karma in general, but it's particular results that are very hard to access. And I think in some sense what he's saying, although we have the word shindu kogir in the text, right, which literally means something which can only be ascertained using a valid source or authority, because you can't ascertain it with your own power of reasoning. I don't think that's actually what he means here. I think it's very hidden in the sense of hidden and in a very strong way. There's another instance of that in Lekshe Sercheng by Tsongkhapa, another text where he says something is shindu kogir, but the interpretation, at least in debate, is that he's just saying it's very, very hard to access. He's talking about somebody else's mind. He says the state of somebody else's mind is shindu kogir to us. But actually, we'd say that it's not. You can ascertain what's going on in somebody's mind, not just with clairvoyance, but you can use clues from their behavior. But you have to observe very closely over a period of time to understand their motivation, understand what they're thinking. Maybe not every single thought, but you can get to kind of understand the level of somebody's realization based upon observing them. So I think the point here is similar, that in general, it's very hard to really gain certainty about karma, about the fact that actions have these kind of results. When we talk about particular results, then it becomes really shindu kogir in the literal sense. So then it says, Deon Tengising Gyapulai is from the King of Concentration Sutras. Dawa karma chepa netung shing ritang trongdu chepe sajikla. So if stars and the moon, if they all fell, and they might all fall from their place, and the mountain might crumble into the town, it's saying. Ritang Trongdu Chepe Sa. Oh no, it's saying the mountain and the earth along with the earth along with the cities on the earth, they might all crumble and everything might be washed away. But and Namke Kamni Namba Shengir Kyang, and the sky itself might change its nature, might become something else, so the sky above us. But Kyoni Midem Pait Sik Mi Zong. So he's saying, but you, Buddha, would not say a single word of untruth. So in that sense, it is actually talking about shindu kogir, that we generate. So we have to generate, if we can't ascertain something ourselves, then we have to rely on the Buddha's teaching on it in order to have some kind of certainty in it. The way to do that is to gain certainty that the Buddha is somebody who would not speak a word of untruth. And of course, there's more than that. There's also that he has to know it himself. He has to know the truth himself. Not that's just he's not lying, but that he has ascertained it. So that's like we often talk about, like in Samanandra, right? So donomilo cheer, sheno disipaprasung. Tapche rab doing epi, solo donomilo cheer, sheno disipaprasung. So when you gain ascertainment of the main point, which is tapche rab doing epi, so the Tonta mata ngopohi tonda dalagon sumtang disapapa niki kang de milo milo sikte de milo way. I'm missing one line there, but anyway, he's saying when you get ascertainment of the things that the stages, basically the Four Noble Truths, right? Then that's when you can gain really ascertain. You can gain conviction in what the Buddha said, that you trust the teaching on the Four Noble Truths is really in accordance with the teaching of somebody who has gained some kind of stable ascertainment. We say kibut sema, right? You may have encountered that in Tariq. Kibut sema. So what is a kibut sema? The general definition is Rani Debashid Rangwang Du Jinda Balopar semingi jing shenla manora dempa. So somebody who has ascertained through their own power the Four Noble Truths and is able to teach that unmistakably to other people. Now, there's quite a bit of debate about where do you draw the line. Like, what is somebody have to be an Arya being and so forth? To be like, what does it mean to when it says Rangwan? That seems to be an important thing. They have to do it through their own power. It's not just that they've ascertained it through hearing somebody else talk about it. But that's why you could Kebut Sema would mean a valid authority that you can trust what they're saying. And so the point being that if the Buddha gave those teachings, then when they receive the Buddha's teachings on karma, you gain some kind of conviction in it because you feel conviction in what the Buddha says in general. So that's a very major topic. You don't get to the shinkok when you get to when you're in Namdra. You won't actually debate that until you're in Uma class. But to me, that was a very important topic in thinking about what the implications of what it's saying and what does he really mean by gaining ascertainment in the Buddha and his speech, and to what degree can that become a valid cognition, right? Then the trust in karma. It's like just because somebody else said it. So we had a lot of debates about that. It was quite interesting. Anyway, so it's saying you should really try to nourish a kind of conviction in the speech of the Buddha, of the Tathagata. So then, so if you don't gain a uncontrived ascertainment of that, then chu gan la yang gyawa gepe nipa then you won't gain the kind of ascertainment that pleases the Buddhas. Kachik tompani la nipa ke serne le tandribula nipa meching dele mitsiwani. So he's saying some people, they gain what they call to be ascertainment of emptiness. Right? The point is, it's not actual ascertainment, but they say, "Oh, I understand emptiness," and then they say, I'm not convinced about karma, right? And then they don't consider it important. It says, Tompaniki koa chidilok to somewhere. They said that's a misunderstanding of emptiness. It's not a proper understanding. And as I think I talked about last week, or I think I said, Lama Rinpoche always used to say that if you really understand emptiness, you should have it. One of the signs of that should be that you have an unshakable conviction in karma. That the law of cause and effect should be supported by your understanding of emptiness. So it's a toni konani, deni tenjogi don du tong ne. So if you see emptiness, if you understand emptiness, then you should see that it is the meaning of dependent arising. And it become a support for your gaining ascertainment of karma and the results. Right. I mean, he talks about that Tsongkhapa and the Lamsa Namsum, right, in the three principal aspects of the path. That's a very important passage. They say that it's kind of unique to Tsongkhapa's philosophy. The last, not the last, very last two, but before that, the second to third to last verses of that, right? Namji Reja Meda Chiktardu, Tenjo Nishita, Tenjo Milo Tawatsomni ne. Nishi yogi zintang hunchikna de te tawa chuprazupala. De on tawa meta sawa tong, yobe meta sawa telching tompa ni. Gyuran de bushartsil chegir ne, tawa chupet tawa tarzan tawa chupamikiro. So he's saying without when it happens simultaneously, not one after the other. You see that dependent arising is into uncontrovertible or infallible. Then that very ascertainment destroys your grasping at true existence. That's when you've completed analysis of the view. If it's talking about analysis of the view, it says that's essentially it means realizing emptiness, right? And then he says I said it before, but anyway, he says, I'm fitting in the first word, but he says that then this, right, so when the ascertainment of dependent arising, that destroys grasping at true existence, and the ascertainment of emptiness destroys grasping at nihilism. So usually it's the other way around, right? That emptiness, you understand emptiness, so you don't think things are truly existent. And you understand Tibetan arising, so you think that you don't think things don't exist at all. But here he's saying the opposite, that actually when it becomes the case, he's saying this is a more subtle thing, that your understanding of dependent arising causes you to not grasp a true existence, because you know the way things exist is dependent on each other. And your understanding of emptiness causes you not to fall into nihilism, because you understand that emptiness is not just a complete complete non-existence of things. So then the understanding of emptiness should support your understanding of cause and effect. So there's a lot of talk about that. You get an exam on Tenjo Dopa when you're in the third year of Uma, right? So that it's your surjong, your auxiliary exam. So some people, this isn't Tenjo Dopa actually, but it's related. So this point comes up. So there's one teacher, Gen Nima, right? It was a Petigen at Ledrepon Loseling, and he was the Petigen for His Holiness for Uma. And he was saying it's like it becomes like the definition in the Definiendum, right? It's not exactly like that, but it's because it's not literally that emptiness is the definition or dependent arising is the definition of emptiness. But he says it's like when you understand that we say noksuk tupi gombo. I don't know if you hear that term. What's a noksuk tupi gombo? It's a definition of a cow, right? It's a gombo. Gombo is like a fat thing that has a hump and so forth. Nok. So that's the definition of a cow. Anyway, the point is when you understand what a cow is, then when somebody says noksok dupe gombo, right? So we could just say, an animal a farm animal that you get milk from. You understand. I mean, there could be other ones, but yeah. And Rabdu Chepa, right? So you immediately understand cow. You don't have to have any kind of conceptual thought process. I think, it has those characteristics, so therefore it's a cow. When somebody sells a cow, you immediately understand what they're talking about. You don't have to think, cow is the word for this, and then you know it. So likewise with emptiness and dependent arising, as soon as somebody says one or the other, it immediately appears to your mind the corollary that it's dependent arising. So of course it's empty. It's empty, so it's dependent arising. So he says that's the measure of having had this completion of the view. And then the Tarzan Tawe Chupa Migiro, so then the extreme views will not steal your mind away. Now, of course, somebody could argue, as some people do, I've seen, that this that emptiness supports cause and effect, and you can understand that. It doesn't have to be karmic cause and effect, and that's a different question, and thereby we don't have to accept past and future lives. But I don't agree with that. As I said, I think when we really think about emptiness, it's not just talking about some kind of conceptual idea of the way things are. It's also talking about the nature of who we are and the nature of the relation of body and physical matter. And that gets into a much different question about how do we incarnate in the first place. And I think it's not a simple thing, but I personally feel that we have to think more deeply about what it's really implying. Is there any way within a materialist framework that there can actually, without something being affirmed, right? There's the passage in Umala Jukpa. I haven't recited it in a while, but so I won't come to mind immediately. But when he's arguing with the Sem Sampa, right, and the proponents of mind only, and he's saying that you say that there's a truly existent mind and that there's no external form. So you're basically saying that according to in conventionality, there's no external form, there's no physical matter. So then when we talk about things that exist conventionally, we're talking about worldly convention. So you're basically stating that according to worldly convention, there is not external matter. So why don't you debate with worldly people? And if you can defeat them in debate, I'll take you seriously. Right? If you can convince normal people that there is no external matter. But the point being that this is a preposterous thing in terms of our ordinary day-to-day experience. So conventional existence is talking about our day-to-day experience. His point is essentially that to affirm one and negate the other, to say that there is a truly existent mind, but there is no external matter,
it's going too extreme to one or the other. Both of them exist conventionally because we experience them conventionally day to day. That's the measure of something existing conventionally. It can be affirmed by our ordinary conventions, and it's not negated by something else. Of course, I can affirm to you that there's a rabbit in front of me, but no one else sees it, so I must be crazy. But that's different. When we're talking about things that we all experience collectively, that's what it means to be conventionally existent. It doesn't mean it exists ultimately. But then to say that the mind exists ultimately and is real. So to me, it's very similar to the view that the external form is real and absolutely existent and must be, and that we must conform to we must conform our views to the laws of external form, because it's something that we can affirm its existence, whereas mind is just an illusion because it cannot be explained by the laws of physical form, and we know physical form to be truly existent. And so then you get into quite a problem, and then it becomes it's similar. You can say, well, you argue with ordinary people and try to convince them that they don't have a mind, and see if you can convince them. Right? So to me, anyway, we get into those kind of arguments. To me, the emptiness does support the idea that basically it seems to not work with the materialist framework, which would be the main argument against the argument for there not being karmic cause and effect. There are other arguments, of course, but this is the most fundamental one. So anyway, I got very sidetracked. I said we weren't talking about philosophy today, didn't I? But still, since it came up, I thought to mention that. So we'll keep going, and we can leave that discussion for another time. Maybe in the Lakdong section when we get there, several years from now. Okay. So do denile, gyuma chubu migyur logdrajing, chunam tamche chuhi dawajin, shine jiktim parol drewehi semchin shilikepa migu kyang. So the same sutra, the King of Concentrations, he's saying, like an illusion, like a water bubble, like a mirage, like lightning, all phenomena are like the moon on water, right? That it's just a reflection. When you actually search for it, it's not there. It says, when you pass away, sentient beings who go to the future life, they are not born from Shele. It's the offspring of Manu, it says. Right, in the Hindu scriptures, they have the laws of Manu, right? The different beings are born. They have the idea of the castes, right? And they weren't born from the different parts of the body of Manu. So it's just saying that this is not how things function. The point here really is that you have the second of the Four Noble Truths, right? The origin. You have the four wrong views, and the third of them is Wanchuk so longo de tane kewar zempa, is that there is karmic cause and effect, there is experience of results, but it's all caused by the control of a supreme being, right? So it's saying that this karmic cause and effect, it's not something that somebody made. It's just the natural state of things. It doesn't require some external actor to function. So lenam chepa me paramigir de. So people say that without anybody creating it, there can't be karma. Karnak jishin drebu minpache ripet sugi kode sampode. So he's saying, but the contrary, you have the results of karma, white and black karma, they ripen. Ripet sugi kode sampode. He's saying this store of reasoning is excellent. To think about it this way. Trashing tongka gyawe chuyu yin. So he's saying it's very subtle. It's difficult to see, to comprehend. It is within the scope of the conqueror. We've talked about that before. That the details of karma are not the general picture, but the very details. It's really something that requires essentially omniscient consciousness to really comprehend. So we can only from our side experience some piece of it, but we can use reasoning, or as he's saying here, thereby use the Buddha's teaching as an authority and generate conviction in that. Then Tendrel le ni Gyutong drebu chepar langi perkeching. So we say from Tendrel le ni Gyutong drebu chepala. I mean, it's a little odd construction, but so you have dependent arising and then the two karmas and then the results and the causes and the results, you gain conviction in that. In Senkundu Gosum the Dokshing. So he's saying day and night. I think lei ni must be gewa and migewa, right? Positive and negative karma. You should contemplate on that day and night. Topashiki, Ngendro Chugi. With that, by doing that, then you stop migration into unfortunate birth, right? So that's kind of what Shantideva was saying at the beginning. You should think about this day and night, about the results of black and white karma. And then Tobmar Gyujigi Namyala Mikejing. So at the beginning, you're not really skilled. You don't really understand the different kinds of karma, cause and effect. And then Jungze Shekyang, when you know just a little bit about it, Gosum Bayang Suchukpa Ni. But when you do know a little bit about it, then if you just allow your mind and body to relax, I mean, the point is Bayang, it's like just let go and not actually focus on what you're doing, then Ngenjo go Konade. So then all you're doing is opening the door for bad migration in the future. Getso Shupalai. So as it says in the sutra, which was requested by Getso, is the name of the Naga king, right? Louis Dakpo, so Naga Lord. Janda Sempa Namgi Chu Chiki Ngenso Ngenju Lopar Tungwa Kewa Yanda Par Chu. So there's one dharma by which people can cut the door, or close the door, to falling into bad migration, and that is Chochi Pogangshin. So what is that? Dita de Dakti Tak Gyurching Ninsen Nam Dashing Dashing Du Yam Nyamdu Gewe Cholana Susutopate. So he's saying, think day and night, what's going to become of me? What will happen as the result of what I'm doing? Gewe Cholana Susutope. So analyze that. Shays of Pichuro. Data Gula Tapa Na Goma Namgi Shine. So when you examine your own mind, then as has been said by all of the previous lamas, like Goma means like previous teachers. Lejiki kaptir chetan tumpana yemitun. So he's saying, when we talk about this, the results of karma and its results, then if you look at our own actions, they're completely out of accordance with that. So dear Okochuk, so he's saying this is our fault. We've made a mistake here. Dena ye mitar. So with that, there's no way we're going to be liberated. Leidretan tune tuna mitunya tawa yin. It's just he's saying, when you check, are your actions in accordance with karma? You see that they are not. Chugi rangyu shudak che sana. So when you check, is your mind pure? Have you purified your continuum? Tumba ye mitumpa mitubala shetapane detar rangyu shikjungna. So if you do that and you find that your mind is completely out of accordance, from the bottom of your heart, you gain this kind of the conviction that your actions are out of accordance with the law of cause and effect. When you gain that kind of conviction, he's saying then you're a kepa, you're a wise person. Right? The point is, when you recognize that your own actions are faulty, that's a very important step. That's essentially the point here. Right? So it shouldn't be. It's not just about being a kepa that you have this great understanding of the teaching, and of the text, but that you actually recognize your own action as a fault. And then it says in the Song, right, the collected sayings of the Buddha, Chipa gangsik chipa ho she shepa de dir kepa yin. So a childish person or an immature person who knows they're immature is a wise person. She sung so. Right, I think the next verse, the next line in that is Chipa gangchi kepa ho she shepa dini chipa. Right, an immature person who considers themselves wise is an immature person. Right, but here an immature person who considers themselves immature is a wise person. She sung so. Chodan tun sana rokowatar. So he's saying, when you check whether you're in accordance with the karma, then it's like carrying a corpse. What they say this means is that when you carry a corpse, you carry it on your back. I mean, I never carried a corpse. I don't know if you have, I say you, but in the old days, when you carried a corpse, right, you carry it on your back. So the corpse is facing away from you. So it's like you're facing one way, the corpse is facing the other way. So that's kind of how we are with the teaching. It's saying that there's a teaching that says one thing, but you're going the other direction. That's the point here. So gap nu du somala. So gap is like on your back, and nu is like, it literally means entwined, right? Like that. But The point is it's going the other direction. Because if some two things are entwined, I guess their heads are facing the opposite direction. So then, Chipetang kitsun giyang serena chipetache yinde. So he's saying, when that's the case, but still you consider yourself a scholar of the teaching, kitsun, right, a scholar and a noble person, then this is the most extreme of immature people. Chipetache. So it's only, again, in the teaching, there's collected sayings of the Buddha. I just said that. Chipa ganchi kesempa dini chipa shejodo, a person who is immature but considers himself a scholar. This is really an immature person. Shesumpe matanayang chulashe ye somshi song. So at the very least, you need to be able to distinguish what is dharma and not dharma, right? And examine your own actions in accordance with that. Dharma. So the word dharma, right? It means many different things, but here it means gewa, it's virtue. Yeah. Lama Zopa Rinpoche always used to say that. Like, check what you're doing is dharma, right? So I didn't realize. I mean, it is a synonym for virtue, right? There's 10 synonyms given for dharma in the Abhidharma, and one of them is virtue. But that's what Rinpoche was talking about. But I remember I was at the teaching at Kopan in 2020 during the lockdown, and Rinpoche was saying, can non-Buddhist people, he was saying like there's somebody, he's talking about a non-Buddhist person who did a very positive action, and he's saying, is that dharma? And I didn't quite understand what he was asking. I said, well, and he asked me, and I said, well, it depends what you mean by dharma, right? And then what does he say? Rinpoche said, he said something like, if that's not dharma, what is it? Then what is it? Yeah, something about the rabbit's horn, right? Something like that. Something about the rabbit's horn. Using this example of something that's completely absurd and not existing, right? So I actually got a little bit, because you have to debate sometimes, and that's how the Rinpoche liked that. So I said it follows that. Yeah, something like it follows that there's, what is it? I'm trying to remember exactly what I said. It's in the transcript there, but it's like that. It follows that that non-Buddhists have rabbit's horns or something like that. Because I thought Rinpoche was saying that non-Buddhists were practicing dharma in the sense of Buddhist dharma, which would seem to be kind of, it doesn't make any sense. It's just a tautology that they're not. But he was saying, but Rinpoche went in the point. I forget the exact wording of the story, but the point is that it's the word dharma in that case is meaning virtue, right? So when Rinpoche, and I didn't realize that's what Rinpoche was trying to say. So then it clicked on me that when Rinpoche was saying dharma and non-dharma, he's talking about virtue and non-virtue. It's in the traditional text. You see that a lot. Even like the Jain text, they talk about what does it mean to be dharma? What does it mean to be non-dharma? They mean, what does it mean to be virtue and non-virtue? Okay, so then anyway, moving on. Potawa yang kira kiti trangne. So the Geshe Potawa, he would give this citation from the Kira, from the birth stories. And then Gyula Dak Gopar Shede, and he'd say you need to check your own mind. You need to check if you're, what's going on in your mind. So Jikedu, as it says in the birth story, Namka Tani Saji Baryang Ring. So there's a far distance between the sky and the earth. Gatso Parol Tsurul Jamyang Ring. So from the near side to the far side of the ocean is a long distance. Sharnu Nigi Ribar Dewe Ring. So from the eastern mountains to the western mountains, far distance. But Peltan Dabe Chokyan Dewe Ring. So from the distance between the mind of an ordinary person and the mind of a Dampa, is like somebody who's a practitioner, is even farther than that. She Sungde Teo Rangchak Tang. So he's saying ordinary is like ourselves. And a Chuni, and then the Dharmic practitioners, Pede Raktan Drawa. So he's saying like that example, Barna Yang Chempo Yoper Sung. So it's very far between us, our own actions, and those of practitioners. Sikche Dini Jangsem Dawe Jamse Lekshigi Kekur Ombashikla Song Tong Pune lampe chuso. So this is saying this verse, this verse from the birth stories, right? It's saying it's from when the Bodhisattva Chandra, a Dawa. Then there was the Brahmin named Lekshi. He's saying he took a gift from Lekshe. The Bodhi, I don't know Lekshe in Sanskrit, but anyway, Chandra, he took the gift from Lekshe, and then he weighed it on the scale. Shikla Song Tong. Oh no, sorry. Song Tong Pune Lampe Chu. So it's when he gave him back. I think it's Song Tong is saying he gave him back 1,000 song, right, like gold coins, right. So he taking the gift, he gave him back the coins. I'm not sure that's the reference to that particular story. I might explain it in here, but it's talking about what was said in response to that to that transaction, and the person made that comment. The verse is a teaching that the gift-bearing Brahmin Subhashita, that's Lekshe, I guess, explained to the Bodhisattva Prince Chandra after the prince had offered him 1,000 golden coins. Okay, so yeah, it's just that the Brahmin happened to teach him this. It doesn't seem to be related to the gold coins per se, just that he gave him coins as an offering for the teaching. And then Tulongwe Shelne, so then Tolongpa, right? Geshe Tolongpa. He said, Tok Shepashiki Dakna. So if a person who knows how to analyzes, Dakna Reshikla Drugu Bapla Tamatar. So like a ball of thread rolling down a steep slope. Right? Chu Tang J Ring Du Samwaj, then your mind just goes farther and farther from the Dharma when you check it. There are samne kyang nechule topetsuni. So having thought that way, then how to turn away from bad behavior. It says Tempapo Leole, so the teaching on the chapter on the truth speaker, right? It's a passage from the sutra, or a chapter in the sutra. Gyalpo kyuni sokchu maze chik. So king, do not kill. That's just advice to the king. Kebo kunla sotni rabdu pang, right? All beings treasure their own life. Dewe yunring seisung sudo pe. So the person who wishes to guard their own life for a long time, igi gulahong sokchu misam ho. So then from the bottom of their heart, they should really not kill other people. Shesum batar migewa chu tang shenyang arashipe kanamatawa namla. Kunongi sampat samya migiwar domsem kundu den. So he's saying you should really practice to gain this kind of mind of restraint, that your mind is not inclined, does not go toward even a slight inclination, a slight thought to engage in the 10 non-virtues or the other kinds of misdeeds that have been discussed so thus far. And then Gombar Cha, then Mandu Tao Chao. So he says then habituate with that and keep doing so. Okay, so we can leave for there. We haven't had question and answer, but I just, I would say we often see this. I mean, this is the style of the traditional teaching is to be, I see it's a bit, I don't know what the right word is, but it's saying, if we look at our minds, we're so far from the Dharma, and there's almost like we're just not even anywhere in accordance with that. I think like with anything, we have to think about the audience and how it's being said. What Genjapa Keldon used to say, one of the founders of the house, was that it's very common if you go to the Lapcha, the Kangsen, so they give advice. It's very much like you're all doing so badly and you need to do better. And that's very much, it seems to work very well for the psychology. It's just kind of the way they were used to hearing things. We see the Gekko. I mean, the Gekko actually this year, I don't know, doesn't seem to be scolding actually as much as some Gekkos have been, but maybe I'm not there. That's the problem. Okay, so yeah, that's what happens, right? But again, Genjapa Keldon was saying, where the foreigners, it often is quite the opposite, that we need to be encouraged. That if people just tell us you're doing badly, that's how we'll actually end up doing worse, because we feel there's not much hope. I guess it's a difference of psychology. So it's useful to think about that, because sometimes we could read these things and then it makes us feel discouraged. That's not the point. It's supposed to be encouraging, that we feel more sense of urgency about doing something and actually do that. Right. I mean, I did read. There was a nice study in one of our magazines, the Scientific American Mind, I think, was in probably 10, 15 years ago. I read it about juvenile delinquents. Right. You know what that is, right? So it was saying what's the best way to help them to overcome their misbehavior, and it was saying they had instituted a kind of, I think, a Scared Straight was the name of this program, where they would bring them to jails. Or maybe were you into this?
No.
Okay.
I haven't.
Yeah, I know. Just the way you smile, I wondered. Yeah, no. So scare. Okay, you just know about it. Okay, so they were bringing them to the jail and showing, okay, here's this prisoner, and this is all the bad things he's in. This is the result he gets, right? And then thinking, okay, in the future, if you don't want that result, just don't do these things. They found, actually, upon analysis with data, that this was actually having the opposite effect. That two problems. When the most blatant problem was that some of the boys were actually meeting the prisoners and befriending them, and then becoming influenced by them. Right? They were thinking, oh, this guy is really quite cool, and I want to be like him. Right? But the other thing was that, I mean, that's the most obvious, but the more subtle thing was that it actually was just making them feel there's no hope for me. Whatever I do, I'm going to end up like this. Right? So the opposite was to then say, here's what you can do, and there's actually a way out of this, and here's what you can do to have a better life, and show people who have turned themselves around. And that was more effective. Right? So I don't know if it's a different of psychology. Maybe in Tibetan culture, I don't know, maybe they could analyze whether one is more effective for different people. But I think that's important to keep in mind for us. And I certainly try to think about that when I give advice to people about things, that we have to think about giving positive advice, giving the sense that there is actually some hope, and there's really something you can do, and incremental steps you can make, rather than making it sound like it's absolutely impossible and we have very little hope, but you can just have this little glimmer of hope if you cling to this. And we have to think that what we're doing is going to have some effect, and be positive about it. So, okay. So let's, we have any questions? And I don't know, do we have any way for people online to ask questions?
They have a chat.
Yeah,
I can put
okay.
it in the YouTube channel.
Okay, but it also looks like we lost them. I don't know if there was a problem. There were 2 people on now. I don't know if the connection went off. And now they're back. So
One person.
anyway, if you have questions, yeah.
One question would be,
Will it be here?
Yeah.
So it seems to me like realizing emptiness would help you a lot with cause and effect,
Mm-hmm.
but just because it helps, and since karma is cause and effect,
Mhm.
we can say it helps with karma. But that doesn't mean it helps. It would feel like to me that doesn't mean it helps you know that if I kill someone, then maybe 1,000 years into the future, I'm going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like there's no way to deduce that or anything, just because you know it.
Yeah, it's a hard question, and it's something, as I said, I'm trying conceptually, through my own debate, through my own reflection, to think about these things, and I don't have a clear answer. But I think that, again, when we really talk about emptiness, it's not just a matter of understanding what we always say, things don't exist from their own side and so forth, but actually understanding the implication of that, and understanding what it has to do with the nature of who I am. And also it gives us more clarity about this process, right? It's talked about when we talk about gaining conviction and karma. They talk about this in debate and in Peti, about that it's not just about future lifetimes. It's also, we start with the example in this life. We often don't even notice this. We don't even notice that actions we do many years prior, that they lead to experiences many years later, in terms of our own mental experience, our own things in our life, that we do one thing and then this causes people to treat us this way or that, so forth. When we have more mental clarity, that comes from getting rid of our wrong views, essentially, because our wrong views are blocking us from seeing things more as clearly as they are, that starts to become more apparent. It starts to become more clear to us the way that our actions are leading to our experiences. And then we can start thinking about that in terms of other lifetimes. Of course, I think to some extent it would require an experience of the past lifetime, and an experience of that progression over that period of time. Really, if somebody gets to the point when they have realization of emptiness, they should they should be having that kind of experience at some point, because that really, it's not just a matter of the intellectual aspect of it. And when we talk about gaining the insight through through combining and special insight, then those things should it's whether it literally you literally have a recollection of this particular thing happened. I think it's perhaps what Rinpoche was saying, as I talked about, saying that you gain this kind of conviction, is that it just sort of intuitively seems to appear that way. But then gradually you have to keep examining that, of course. But it should be that it kind of, the mind is in tune with this sense that uh, what I'm experiencing is essentially coming from my own thought process, my own actions in the past, rather than, I mean, when you say that when we project this true existence on the object, then we project all the problems externally. So as that diminishes, that kind of blaming of external circumstances can start to, start to be less solid. But at the same time, this is a bit of speculation, and as I say, it's this is not an easy subject at all. In the emptiness in and of itself is fairly straightforward. When you study Uma and you get to understanding the object of negation and so forth, it's not easy, but it you can kind of get to that. But then, how does this support karma? That's much harder, right? But anyway, that's about the best answer I can give at this point. But I think it's good you keep asking the question and don't assume that it's true just because it's in the text. You have to ask the question. Mm. Mm. Okay. You have any questions?
Yes, but it's like a sidestep. You
Mm.
you at the beginning we talked about that the correlations in karma, they are very subtle.
Mhm.
But aren't there some which are kind of known because so many people talk about it? Like when you steal, the relation might become that you don't have money, or when you like a few of this kind of relations that people agree that there might be, the equivalent relation.
So the question is that it's not subtle because it's commonly spoken about, or that it's
No, I
something.
mean, I read that there are 10 relations that are really a lot of people think that these are the relations, the karmic relations, but only 10.
Okay.
And I wonder if you heard about them or.
Well, you're talking maybe about the 10 non-virtues and their results. You're talking about, you read this in a Buddhist text.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, there's a whole book from Geshe Michael Roach about this.
Mm-hmm.
About these
Yeah.
relations.
Okay. I mean, I think probably you're talking about the 10 non-virtues and their results, right? And so.
No, it also
No?
something like, but I don't
Okay.
know if I remember when you are living in a dirty place.
Yeah,
This
sure.
might be a
Right.
relation that you, was it sexual?
Yeah, sexual misconduct. So maybe it's in the Ratnavali, right? The jewel garland, precious garland by Nagarjuna, and he gives the results of 10 non-virtues, which it might be the quote. Then it's quoted in here in the Lamrim also. So those are the ones that are kind of the standard ones that are presented, right? But it's not that it's meant to be obvious, right? It's presented that way, but then the question of actually ascertaining that to be true, that's what's said to be subtle. It's one thing that the Buddha said, that by practicing generosity you experience wealth in the future, but to actually ascertain that with one's own reason, let alone one's own perception, is that's what's very subtle. As he was just asking, I mean, how do we actually gain conviction in this beyond simply that it's something that was said in the text? And sort of saying something that we debate a lot about, like what is the text actually saying, and then how do we really gain conviction in that? Otherwise, it's not just a matter of accepting it just because it's said there.
I see.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay.
I should remember my other question.
Okay.
So do you personally believe that the inference based on scripture is possible?
Like, is it actually a inferential valid cognizer? Is that your question?
Yes. Yeah.
I have some question about that. I was debating that with my classmates, and when we had this topic back in 2019, my classmate and I had to sit Damsha for this, and we were so there's a few senior monks, and one of them was very nice. I mean, I appreciated his trying to point this out. He said, well, look, there's this passage from Lekshe Serchen, where it's Tsongkhapa, where he says that something is not actually a yichikejepak. He's saying it, and then he's saying, giving this passage to Dharmakirti. So I looked it up in the Rangja, right, the auto commentary, where it really is not clear at all. It almost seems to be the opposite. When Dharmakirti is talking about the valid cognizer by belief, it doesn't seem to be saying it's a valid cognizer, right? And so there's some question of where that idea came in. I believe that in one of our books, there's a talk about that, Scripture, Logic, and Language, I think it was. I remember looking in there, because Venerable Namdrung had told me about that. I can't remember if I really pinpointed the passage he was talking about, but nevertheless, it's a big question. And I debated this a lot with my classmates. It's like, if you can, even if you can ascertain the Buddha as a valid source, right? There's a couple of questions. When you read something that says something that's very hidden, first of all, can you ascertain with certainty that he actually said it? That's the first question. But secondly, even if you can, how do you know it wasn't something he was saying for the purpose of that particular person? We already accept, for example, that when the Buddha said, if you just make a prayer to be born in Sukhavati, you'll be born there, that's not meant to be taken literally. Now, Tokmei, my teacher, he said that's something that can be refuted by reasoning. So thereby, it's not a chesum gidapi lung, right? It's not something that's actually, it's not a passage that withstands analysis by the three kinds of analysis, because the second kind is, does it contradict reasoning? And it says it would contradict everything else the Buddha said. And that if the Buddha says you have this long path and gradual accumulation of merit, and it's just you just say one prayer and you're basically enlightened, then it doesn't fit at all. It doesn't fit with the general reasoning. Otherwise, everybody would already be enlightened. But then in more subtle things, like the Buddha says one particular action, like, for example, if somebody says, if somebody does a negative action and the Buddha says, don't do that or you'll have this terrible result, maybe he's just exaggerating the result because it will help them not to do it. And so how do we know for sure what was actually the intention of it? So yeah, it's an open question. And to me, I think of it more as just kind of a general sense of conviction rather than concern. Is this a actual jepak, right? A milua, incontrovertible consciousness. So yeah, that would be interesting to look historically where that came in, whether it was like Dharmotara. A lot of the Geluk presentation of Namandra, of the Pramana, comes from Dharmotara's interpretation of it, right? And then within that, even then later accretions on that, within Tibet. And accretions isn't a very nice word, but just different ways of interpreting it. So we have to see where that idea really became fixated on, and it's definitely not a minor thing, right? Because we see the way that is that we relate to the Dharma in this monastery, and of course, debate is absolutely central, and there's always questioning of everything. But there's also, of course, a level of acceptance of things because this is the way it is said in the scripture to a certain, in certain cases, and different people do that to different degrees. But how much is that going to be influenced by if we really believe that there's such a thing as an inference by scripture? And so that's a difficult question. There's inference from scripture we even see in non-Buddhist schools, right? They have that as actually a separate category of inference, lungi jepak. right? So it's also to compare it with what they mean by that, and um, how does the Buddhist understanding compare to that? But I think in general, the idea of the Chesung Bilapilung is quite good. That you can you first have to see if the Buddha says something, or there's a passage in a sutra attributed to the Buddha that contradicts what you can see directly, what you can directly experience, then you can reject it, right? So obvious things are now things that we can now see that were not seeable then. Like we can now see that there is not a Mount Meru in the center of the world, right? And then things that contradict reasoning, right? So like these other passages that seem to contradict what we don't make sense when held up to analysis, then why do we accept any teaching at all if we can't be withstand that? And then that it's not internally contradictory. If the Buddha says one thing one time and the opposite thing another time, then one of those has to be incorrect. The Buddha isn't magic that he can change the truth, right? Yeah. Okay. So it's already gotten a bit over time here.
Provide your collection capacity space so that I can ask and working with that.
Of this practice for a great length of time, may I become the chief leading Buddha for all those whose minds wisdom eye is blinded by ignorance. Even if I do not reach the state, may I be held in your loving compassion for all my lives, Manjushri. May I find the grace to complete Vedic paths of the teachings, and may I please all the Buddhas by my practice. So if me strong with the strong force of compassion, may I clear the points of beings, the points of the past as I have discerned them. May I uphold the Buddha's teachings for a very long time. Going out with great compassion in whatever direction the most precious teachings are not yet spread, or once spread have declined, may I reveal this treasure of happiness and aid. So those who wish for liberation be granted bounteous peace, that these be nourished for a long time, paving this graded path to enlightenment, completed to the wonders, virtuous conduct as the Buddha's sons. The non-human beings who eliminate the diversity and the discussions for practicing excellent paths, every parted in the end of their lives in the purest path praised by the Buddhas. Whenever someone makes an effort to act in accordance with the tenfold Mahayana virtuous practices, he always be assisted by the mighty ones, and the oceans of prosperity spread everywhere.
So do you want to do the interview now?
Agree?
You want to do it in the library?
Yeah, everything is set up in the library, so.
Is someone there?
Hey.
Yeah.